But anyway, welcome. And a little bit about IFAS extension. There's one of us, an office in almost every county in Florida with a variety of different agents. I do stuff with families. I do nutrition, child development, some money management. Last week, I believe you all had someone on a webinar doing some things about plants. And a lot of people either know about extension from 4-H or from master gardeners. But we are a wealth of information for a lot of your questions. So budgeting. Getting started can be the hardest part. I don't know if anybody has ever experienced that, but sometimes it takes a situation to even think about budgeting. And a situation I think we can all relate to right now is COVID-19. Um, I know I'm blessed to have a job, but I also know there's quite a few people even in our community that don't have a job right now. So the budgeting makes it makes it even more important for people to start thinking about where their money goes. But again, budgeting, getting started is the hardest part. When we start to look at budgets, some of the things that we need to think about is that we need to think about what are our financial goals. Are we wanting to spend, do we want to save money for a big purchase? Do we want to put money down on a house? Are we retiring? Are we getting married? Are we sending kids through college? So a budget is not a tool, just, set it and forget it. It changes with every life stage that we're in. So again, before we start thinking about a realistic budget, it's very important to think about what is your financial goal. Another really sometimes difficult part to think about is the money. A budget should be planned around the money that we have coming in. And I've listed some sources of income on the slide right here. And, for most people, their money comes from employment. For some people, it comes from self-employment. For other people, it's from multiple jobs. Some people live on child support or maybe alimony, and government benefits such as Social Security or disability payments. And then some people are lucky enough to have a retirement income in the form of a 401k or in the form of a defined benefit plan. But all of those are sources of income and sources of income that we should think about when we're planning for a budget. And now is a time where people are thinking, oh, you're so lucky you have retirement income. But if your retirement income is based on a 401k, and you've seen the stock market take a nosedive, that this might be a time, even when people are living on in their retirement, that they have to think about reallocating and rethinking about their money. So all sources of money should be factored into what we have to live on. Okay, all right, we can go to the next slide. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this was as of December 2019. And you have seen that the world has it's done a 180-degree turn from December of 2019. So it'll be interesting to see when this comes out. Again, these come out fairly almost quarterly, really, but they don't do the graphs and everything every time that the statistics come out. But this is thinking about a typical person, and according to the latest census that I looked at online, the median household income in Leon County is $51,201 per household of 2.41 people. So what does that mean to you? It means that about half the people in Leon County, half the families in Leon County are living on household incomes of less than $51,000, and the other half are living on incomes of more than $51,000. So this is a very good starting point to me, and it's talking about different components of a budget. And I am just assuming that people that are attending this webinar are people that are living on their own. They're not living, they're trying to make ends meet within their own within their own household. And so that could be a household with kids, that could be a household with two people, that could be a household of one. But nonetheless, all the households will need to have housing, they will need to have food and beverage, apparel, transportation, medical care, some money put aside for recreation, some money for it, they're calling it education and communication. I think we can call it cell phone bill and cable bill. And then there's other goods and services. And again, if you add up my numbers, they add up to more than 50. I think it's right at 51,000. But again, it's just a good starting point. So again, let's look at the most expensive one, and that is the housing. And when people go to think about where they want to live or what kind of house they want to buy, one of the first things that that is considered is, can you afford it? And how do you know if you can afford it? Housing is generally the most expensive component of a budget. And if I go to buy a house, most lenders won't give me any more than about 34% of my salary. So again, if I'm making 100,000, they're only going to lend me 30. So they're going to go about three times my salary. They're going to give me about 300,000. If I'm making 50,000, they're going to lend me about 150,000. And then if we look at rent, what that is saying is that if I'm making the $50,000 a year, that my rent should not, there's an amount of rent that I can be paying every year and still be able to pay my bill, and that's about $21,000. So again, when we start looking around Tallahassee and we see that rent, even of a one-bedroom apartment somewhere, is going to cost $900, so we have to start managing in other aspects or other components of the budget. Everybody needs to eat. And so again, food and beverage, 14% of a standard budget. And this is broken down. If you ever go look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is broken down even more. But I thought it was surprising to see that the average household spends about 6% of their income, little more than 6% of their income on food at the grocery store, but about 7% eating out in restaurants. So if one thing that has happened during COVID-19, we could all pretty much, I think all of us could say, we've been able to save some money because we're not eating out, and that we're buying food from the grocery store, we're preparing it ourselves. I think personally that apparel seems like a low amount of money. I can't imagine a family of four spending $1,500 a year on clothing. Transportation, that's another huge thing when we look at a budget. If you think about transportation, it's just not the car, it's the maintenance, it's the gasoline, it's the insurance. So again, if we're having trouble making ends meet, we can start thinking about some of those things. Do we need to have an expensive car? What kind of insurance are we carrying on that car? And then we can also start thinking about gas. Right now gas is cheap, but I think I've lived through times where gas was close to $4 a gallon. So it makes you think twice about, buying a gas guzzler. Medical care, again, if you're paying for insurance from your employer, the average American pays about 8% of their salary on insurance. If you're in one of those categories that we talked about earlier about the self-employed are paying probably 3 times that much for insurance. Everyone needs to have some fun, so they put in the recreation there, and that is like going to the movies, going to do something fun. And then again, we talked about education and communication. A friend of mine recently told me she spends $204 a month on her cable bill. And so again, that's where I wish I had some technical skills, because I'd be looking at how to Hulu and all those kinds of things to reduce my cable bill. And then other goods and services. Those are all the things that that aren't in there. So anyway, this is just a really good place to start to think about, where are you spending your money? All right. So, oops, I think one, yeah, all right. So some good habits to develop when trying to get a handle on budgeting or how to spend your money is to know where your money is going. We talked about where's your money coming from, and now we're talking about where's your money going. I'm not a Luddite, but sometimes I think I should be because of my technical skills. But to me, this is a great tracker for money. What is this? It's a piece of paper that I fold in half and then fold it into little squares. And I can keep it in my pocket, I can keep it in my purse, I can keep it in a very convenient place so that I can write down that I spent, $32, picking up lunch for the office. I spent $9.63. And so by the end of the day, you've kind of tracked all the money that you've spent on different things. People that are very technically oriented, there's all kinds of trackers on the web that you can download. And even some of the banks out there now have financial kind of classes and things that you can take on the bank platform that help you track your money, and then it'll even enter it into a spreadsheet and everything for you. So it's there's a lot of different applications there. If you like pen and paper, this is your tool. If you like an app, go ahead and download one. If you want to use what your bank has and have it put into a spreadsheet, that's a really great way too. But most people are really shocked to see that after tracking their spending, and I would do it for at least a month, that you would be, you're shocked to see where money just kind of leaks out of your spending. And this is really, really important when you're budgeting, because when we start thinking about budgeting, we have what we most people call fixed and flexible expenses. And although we talked about a couple components of a budget, I like to consider a bill a fixed expense, because you know that if you don't pay that bill, you get a consequence. And the consequence can be something as simple as, they send you a late payment letter, or it could be something more substantial, like they charge you interest and then they charged you a fine. And that is really why, as well, it's very important for you not only to record your spending, but it's very important for you to open your mail. I know a lot of us have chosen, for sustainability reasons, to get our statements via internet. And again, it's very easy not to open those because you'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes. And I had an incident like that, and I'm just going to tell you about it, that I canceled a credit card after I paid it off. And so it was during COVID. I opened it up to see what was going on, and I had like a $78 bill. And so I called them. I said, I paid this in full. And they said, oh yeah, but your payment didn't make it until the day after it was due. And this is, who knows what happens through all these online transactions. So they charged me interest of $6, and then they charged me a late payment fee of $24. So that was for 1 month. Because I didn't think I had a bill, I never opened the statement. The next month I got the same, so now I'm up to like $56, $58. And the third month it went up to $78, and that was on a bill that I owed nothing on. And so what happens if I really, really had owed money on that bill? you would be getting sucked interest after interest after interest after late payment after late payment after late payment, and that turns into some real money. Um, you know, People don't often exercise their right to assert themselves, and it's your money and you need to assert yourself. I mean, I called the company. I said, hey, what's going on here? And they said, oh yeah, we'll take care of it, and they did. But for some people, they would rather pay the $80. I'm not one of those people. So we have to be really, really judicious and have a plan for how we keep track of our money. And if we write it down and look at it, that makes it a lot more real for us. When we get to the end of this PowerPoint, I've included a couple of tools that I like to use, and one of them is it's again very, very low tech. It's a calendar where you write down on the calendar when your bills are due and you make sure that you pay it. And for some people, that visual reminder is a very, very powerful tool to help you pay your bill on time. Because again, just like a credit card will incur interest and penalties, so will your cable bill, so will your phone bill, so will the power bill, on and on and on. And for some people, just getting organized with a budget enough to pay their bills on time actually gives them a little raise at the end of every month. So one of the tools that I have provided at the end of the PowerPoint or at the end of this session is something that the University of Florida has developed, and we call it an EDIS publication about building a spending plan, and it's very similar to the calendar. So if you're not interested in in a calendar-based budgeting kind of thing, this is a really interesting document about how to build a spending plan. And another very, very low-tech method that I don't recommend because I think it's dangerous, but some people still use with great success, is to put your money in categories in envelopes, and you spend your money that way. And actually, that is a calendar. I just talked about the calendar-based budgeting method, but there is that is called the envelope-based budgeting method, where you set money aside and you pay your bills out of what you set aside. So anyway, it's very, very important to know what your bills are, know when your bills are due, and to be able to know where the money was spent. Banking has changed a lot. I can say without a doubt I'm slow to embrace the banking online and checking online and not writing checks and all that kind of stuff, but I have been getting a little bit better with that. But that's also a really, really great way to manage money, is that your institutions, you can sign up for alerts, and you can sign up for, they'll tell you, hey, your bill's due, and they'll try to help keep you on track. And so at the end of the month, when we tally up our spreadsheet, we will see if we spent less or more than we had intended to. And then that's where the hard decisions come. The hard decisions come after you find out if you have more or less money than you thought you would have. And so that's where some adjustments need to be made. And like I said, it's a work in progress, because every stage of life has different needs, and so your money will be spent in a little bit different ways. But a lot of people need to get a handle on debt, and I'm going to say it out loud, and maybe they can write it down and put it on the line as well, because I didn't think about this earlier. But if you do have a debt issue that needs to be addressed, there's a really, really good tool called powerpay.org, and it's part of the Utah State University money management system they have online. But you put in and there's probably other programs out there that work like this, but you put in your bill or your credit, and you put in your interest rate, and you can play around with it, do multiple scenarios, and they'll play up a, print up a little scenario for you about how many months it'll take you to get out of debt, and which bill you should pay first to help this get done faster. Also, there's some, again, I said most of the banks have, if you look on their websites, they have financial management materials, not only for budgeting, but for credit repair, and not for credit repair, but for helping you get your credit in order and things like that. And there's one right now that's really great out there. It's the CFPB. And I know that the website is included on the last slide, but they have recently sent me, like yesterday, a link to something that they are calling Debt Boot Camp. And it's a free email course where they'll send you 9 different lessons about ways to help you get out of debt faster. So, there's just, my budget's not the same as yours, your budget's not the same as your neighbor's, and so it's a very, very personal thing. And so, again, the first step is to think about what are your financial goals. And the second step is to know where your money's going. The third step is to, learn as much as you can, about the money that you have, and how the fixed and flexible expenses influence what categories that your money will be put into. And one of the things that it doesn't talk about much on the spending plan is something about paying yourself each month as well, because a lot of heartache could be, we could do a lot with a lot less heartache if we had emergency savings. And there, again, some federal government resources and things like that, they're talking about how there's so many people, even before COVID-19 happened, that couldn't put $400 together if they had an emergency. And so you're wondering, well, how do people get in such debt, and how can people go to these, payday lenders and things like that? But a simple thing like a bad tire, your child has to have a tooth pulled, they break their arm, whatever. Those could send some people into a financial crisis because of not having an emergency fund. So it doesn't matter if you only can put $5 in a savings account every month. Just put something aside, because you never know when that emergency is going to happen. And I think we see that now, how important it is not only to have some emergency money put aside, but even to have things like emergency food put aside for ourselves. So we can go on to the next page. So some good tips to help us successfully maintain our budget is to get motivated. And everybody always talks about SMART goals. And SMART goals can help you be successful. But smarter goals can also help you succeed faster. And so a smarter goal is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's results-based, and it's time-sensitive. And it's evaluated and reviewed. Because like we said, there's many, many different life stages. And something I'm doing right now might not be good in 10 years. So I have to continuously evaluate and review. Another one is to make timely payments on all your bills. And again, we talked about that with the calendar-based budgeting, or an app, or an alert. You can be alerted a couple days before your bill is due, so that you don't incur the fees and fines of not paying your bill on time. And also know that some people report to creditors when your bills are not paid on time, and a bill that's reported to your creditor can have adverse effects on your credit rating. And what can that do? Again, a bad credit rating can influence a mortgage payment. It influences the amount of money you pay for your car insurance. They're even saying that a bad credit rating can influence different types of jobs that are available to you. So pay your bills on time, and when we speak of credit, is a whole nother ballgame. But know too that everyone is allowed 3 free credit reports every year. There's 3 different bureaus out there, and each one of them is required to give you a free report each year. So again, determine your wants versus your needs. And again, that seems simpler than it is. But again, when our wants and our needs should fit within our budget. And I like this one too. Change the due dates to make the payments on your terms. You know, just because your bill is due on the 16th of every month doesn't mean you can't call up your creditor and say, hey, I'd rather pay that on the 1st because I get paid on the 1st. And so they too will work with you because they want you to pay them back. So it makes more sense for you. And I think it's kind of odd in this day and age, but some people are still paid monthly. I'm paid every other week, so that's 26 payments a year. And then some people are paid twice a month or once a week or whatever. So people are paid differently as well. And then another very good way to successfully manage your budget is to, when paying by credit card, ask yourself, would you take out a loan for this? Because remember, when you use a credit card, you're using tomorrow's income today. And I gave you the little story of what a $6 credit bill, what a $6 interest payment would have cost me if I didn't call to complain. And so think about that, and the amount of money that you're going to have to pay in interest and other things. And some people say you should, people don't say that credit is a bad thing. I'm not in that school. But I think credit is a tool, and credit should be used wisely. And there's a lot of things that we would never have if we didn't have the capacity to use credit. So again, we need to be careful with that. All right, so the next slide. And so these are some of the resources that I talked about. There's a money management calendar, and it's 2019-2020, and it's it's a PDF downloadable calendar, and it has some really good information about budgeting. And I printed out a couple pages, so I don't know if you can see that, but it's just a calendar, and on the side of the calendar it has some monthly income. It's asking me where I got my money, and then it has some of the fixed expenses that we talked about, like anything that you can get that you'll get a fine for or a fee for if you don't pay it on time. Your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your cell phone, your cable or internet, your loans, your insurance, those kinds of things. And then flexible expenses, although we need them, we still need it, they're on here as well. And that's like food and clothing and entertainment and that kind of things. And so then with each month in the calendar, if you print it out, there's a spreadsheet that is very helpful, so you can do a one-time look and see where you're spending your money. And it's a very easy thing to total up. The next one is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and I told you about the course that they sent me something about yesterday, and that course was called Get a Handle on Debt Boot Camp, and it's an online 9-session. They send you stuff they said 2 times a week for 4 weeks about ways to get out of debt. And then the other one is another free service online, and it's called Consumer Credit. And again, they have a free counseling available for people with credit problems, and they have the booklet, the PDF that's attached is a very, very interesting or an easy to read booklet about simple ways to manage credit and budgeting. So before I start answer any questions, we're going to go over one more time that a budget is a personal plan, and a budget is different for everybody depending on your stage in life, depending on your income. But everyone's budget should start with thinking about what are your financial goals, where's your money going, where's your money coming from, and how do you, and then devising it from there. And a really important thing as well is to build a budget that you can stick to, because if you make it too punitive, you won't stick to it. So making a budget that works for you builds in things that you like as well, like having fun occasionally. But for a lot of people, a budget is also a way to keep them accountable. And again, if you're a young person and thinking about retirement, that doesn't just happen. That comes with planning, and that planning starts when you're pretty young. And it starts, and so again, it's money that you put away, it's money that you'll get from Social Security, and it's money that you are setting aside for retirement.